While we're waiting for hands to go in the air, if I could ask just to elaborate a little bit about the near retirement population and whether you've done any analysis of what's happening with the people 54 to 62 or 66, the kind of crowd that's facing maybe greater challenges in terms of returning to the workforce than younger workers?
Yeah, I think that what you've seen over and this goes back many years now, last decade or so, is an upward trend in employment population ratios among that group of 54 plus, and there's a number of reasons for that. But I think people feel more able to work and they're facing longer life expectancy would certainly be one reason for why you're seeing that. That upward trend has been damped down since 2007. So people talk about the fact that there have been not huge decreases in employment in that group, and that's correct. But the upward trend that I described has fallen downwards. So what's the point of that? I think the challenges that I'm pointing to in this 25 to 54 group in terms of employment population are showing up in the older group, but they're being masked slightly by the fact that we had an upward trend we were coming down off of.
Please get your hands in the air if you have a question to pose. Looking right and left, one from our president here. David, we're going to force you to wait just a few minutes, and we'll take this question first.
The shape of the beverage curve was strikingly similar, of course, and the question I have is, does the absolute difference in vacancy rates between Sweden and the U.S. in this case, would that be a predictor that the curve is going to change as compared to what you saw in Sweden? In other words, that higher vacancy rate?
I think to be honest, I think doing a cross-country comparison. So for most of the pictures I showed, or the other three, in fact, I feel very confident and comfortable with your making cross-country comparisons of the levels. So if you look at the employment population picture for Sweden, the fact that there are more Swedes as a fraction of the population employed, that's meaningful and has content. I feel less confident and comfortable. Different measures of vacancies can give rise to it. It's safer to stay within the country and do that comparison. So I think going across countries with that particular measure is I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Our economic policy that you discussed is internal looking. While we become more of a nation and a world of interdependence. So the Swedish model went through that period which was more insular. Are we able, through our economic policy, to affect change in inflation and in employment while our economic partners are maybe going another direction?
Well, I think it's a great observation, a very important one to always be thinking about the global interconnectedness of the world we live in. But the truth of the matter is, I think that Sweden, being a very small country, was just always much more exposed to the sort of the world economy. There's been a change in certainly the level we're exposed to that, and something that we as policymakers always have to be internalizing and keeping in mind. With that said, we're still much less exposed as an economy to the world than Sweden was.
And one final question that I'll pose, and you can punt if you want. Given what you've just shared with us about the comparative with Sweden and how their financial, monetary, credit crisis was maybe an example of what we came through, and it's different than a normal recession, a typical cyclical recession. As you look back over the last few years, were the remedies applied both on the monetary side and the fiscal policy side, adequate and appropriate to the kind of recession we've just experienced?
I think this is a good question. It's one that will be open to discussion and debate for many years to come. I feel most comfortable knowing my fellow economists as I do. I say that with a great deal of certainty, more than anything else I'm going to say. This will be debated for many years to come. But I will say that I think that that we should, the Federal Reserve, for the FOMC, I take a lot of pride in the fact that we've done as well as we have on inflation. I think that the kind of shock we suffered in 2008 could easily have led us into significant disinflationary pressures, into deflation, into a deflationary trap of the kind that many people associate with Japan. And I think that the levels of accommodation, the monetary policy, the easing that the Fed did in 2008 has continued, has kept that from happening. Now, that sounds like I'm focusing on the price stability mandate, but as I told you, the two are complementary to one another. And so one of the reasons we've been able to avoid the high unemployment we saw in the Great Depression, where unemployment was as high as 25%, is because we were able to keep inflation so close to 2%. So that's a very partial answer to your question. I await the future research, so they'll lend more color to what I said. Thanks.